no matter where we are, that we would all grow closer to you and each other. That's my prayer. And if it's your prayer, you're watching and listening, let's, as a sign of solidarity, all together say, amen. 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 Well, today we're going to be talking about refried beans and tostadas. Why are we making those separate? Because the good thing about refried beans is that they're very versatile. They can go with any dish that you might make. And our goal here at Change is that we want to try to promote a plant-based diet. A plant-based diet, number one, because it's the diet that God originally gave us in the garden. And the reason why he gave it to us is because he knew that that would work best with our bodies. So if you're in your journey of trying to become vegetarian or to even become pescatarian, or even to go vegan, whatever the case might be, hopefully these recipes will help you in that journey so that you can get that full health that God has for us. And let's focus on the beans first, and then we'll talk about the tostadas. Now, I remember growing up, I thought refried beans were actually like a different kind of bean, but all they are is just like the regular beans that you might have, but they're prepared a different way. So in this recipe today that we're going to show you, we're going to be using pinto beans. Now, you could really do the same thing if you're using pinto beans, kidney beans, black beans. But as we're talking about these, the reason why we're going this route is because it's the most popular version of when we talk about a refried bean. So you have to start with actually preparing the beans yourself. We're not going to do that in today's video because that takes more time. We actually have a link where we taught you how to make chili. You could actually even use that chili to make your refried beans. And if I'm thinking correctly, I think we showed you how to make pinto beans before. And if we haven't, we'll have to do another one of those videos in the future. But let's start from this point on with beans that you've already prepared. And that's what I actually have here. So what we've done is we've used our pressure cooker. Thank you, Mommy. Thank you, Mama Bailey, for the pressure cooker that we've been using dutifully to make our beans. Because in the past, normally we were making our beans, we were making them on the stove. We were even using a kind of an old-fashioned crock pot / pressure cooker. If you want to make them anyway, that's fine. But the reason why we like the pressure cooker is because you can time it and make it repetitively. For example, it's got like a 15-minute or 30-minute setting. Some of us are afraid of eating beans because they don't really agree with our digestion. Well, to help that process, just cook them down. So what we've done is like we'll usually do like a double or triple cook on the 30-minute cook. Now, again, you can make them from raw to cooked in about 30 minutes with the pressure cooker. But if you really want to ensure that you've worked out all that gas, but you still have the vitamins and the protein that you want in this plant-based recipe, you can use a pressure cooker. And that's what we've done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our beans, which were just coming out of their third cook. And what we've done with these beans is that we've actually gone ahead and seasoned them. By season them, what I mean is that we've added the onions, bell peppers, and the various seasonings, basically your chili powder seasonings to make our beans. So again, we're not focusing on making the beans. Once you've made the beans, however you normally make them, plant-based, again, plant-based, now how can we make these a refried bean that we're going to use for our tostada? Well, the easy way to do that, all you need is a blender, because the blender is going to change the texture of that bean, not the flavor, just the texture. So I'm going to use our small version. We have a small Ninja blender here. And really, it's all about, this is a whole this is a whole pound of pinto beans that I have here. It's kind of hot. Let me get a towel there so you can see. So I got a whole pound in here of cooked pinto beans. Now that these have already been cooked and seasoned, now we can turn them into a paste. And all you need to do is get a blender. Now, if you want to go old school, if you want to use a potato press or like a potato masher, you can do that too. But I like to use the blender because the consistency that you get is a lot smoother. So we've taken a pound of pinto beans. Whoops, just lost the bean. I never do that when we're not on camera, but of course, we're going to do it now. And we're going to fill this up to about a cup. Now, remember, if I'm using about a cup of beans cooked, that's going to reduce the amount when it's actually blended or when we, quote, refry it. So be mindful of that. So that's why you want to make sure that you have a little bit more beans than you plan on using, because you can always blend down more. But once they're all gone, you can't blend anymore. So we've taken a cup. Let's see how much this gives us. Just going to blend for a second. I'm trying to turn it into a paste so that it can spread on the tortilla. Now, because these are hot, obviously they're going to be thin. And if you like it to be a bit thicker, when you're doing your blending, don't get a lot of your juice. Strain out that juice so that you just get that bean. If you like it to be a little thinner, I'm probably gonna leave that here. If you like it to be a little bit thinner, then keep your juice in. Again, it's all about what your preference is. So now, this is the consistency where we've gone from here, this is the actual bean, to a paste. And if I were to measure this out, this is about 3/4 of a cup of beans that's been blended. So this is how you make a refried bean. This is how all of the big chain restaurants, Mexican chain restaurants, this is how they do it too. They simply take the regular bean, it's cooked, then it's processed or blended to make a paste. And that's what we've got here. Now we've got this paste that keeps the bean flavor, and now you can put it on a tostada. So that's all a refried bean is. It's a regular bean that's been blended. It's a great route to go to where even if you do put crumbles or some type of veggie or plant-based meat in it, that's fine. It'll just be ground up and be a little bit thicker. Or if you like that texture, you can put in your refried beans and then add your meat later. So these are just beans. We have no meat to put on these. We're not putting any crumbles or any kind of plant-based meat in here. We're going for as kind of traditional as possible in the plant-based route. Because again, obviously traditional would be to have meat, but we're going plant-based. So that's all you're doing. You're taking your cooked beans, blending them, and now you've got your base of your refried bean to build up your tostada. So let's talk about the tostada. Move these out the way. When we're talking about a tostada, the beautiful thing about all the cultures that we see in our world is that there's health in every culture in some way. There's a piece of the diet that you can take. One of the best things that we can take from the Hispanic culture is this tortilla. The reason why I say that is because of the geography and the location, a lot of the Hispanic diet is not a wheat-based diet because of, again, the geography and the terrain. This place like Central America, South America, it's not really given to grow wheat as opposed to corn. So because of that, a lot of the grain base for that cuisine tends to be corn because it's easy to be made. So we're not talking about a tortilla, which is a tortilla chip. And we're not looking at a flour tortilla, which is made of a corn flour. This is usually made of a corn meal. That's why it's hard. And because it's hard, basically corn that's fried, it gives us a big version of a tortilla chip. And so it can be a little gangly to deal with, but with a little practice and a little repetition, it gets easier to work with. We like them too because they're about 5 inches across. And so they're pretty big, but not too big. But also another benefit, health benefit to eating with the tortilla is that it is gluten-free. So if you're trying to make that transition to minimize or just eliminate gluten, this is a great option to go for, and to trying to use tortillas to replace your wheat products. Now, here is a con, or one of the issues that you got to be aware of when you're making that transition. What you got to keep in mind is that pretty much all of the corn now, as of 2021, that's being produced is genetically modified. That's why you'll see it called a GMO. And usually the modification that's made to the corn is that the corn is, again, the genetic material is modified. Either there's things inserted or deleted in order to create something that is pest resistant. So that pesticide is actually engineered into the actual corn itself genetically. So normally the modification that is made to fight off the pest is that when that modification is made, it causes, if a pest eats the corn or bites into it while it's, again, in the field, it makes their stomach explode, the long and short of it. Now, the problem is because so many of us are eating corn, and since most corn is genetically modified, this is one of the reasons why a lot of us are dealing with gastrointestinal issues without even knowing it. Because the corn's been modified to mess with bugs' bellies, it can also mess with our tummies too. I'm not saying it will, but it can. So here's something to keep in mind. When you're looking for a tortilla, try to find one, obviously, that is organic. Now, that's going to be tough to do because most of them on the store shelves, they're not made that way. So you're really looking at basically three options. One, where you're trying to eat a diet of temperance, to where if I can't find it, I want to eat, enough, but not too much. The other option is to actually go and look for the organic version of a tortilla, and they are out there because they're made from non-GMO corn. And then the third option is make it yourself. Now, we are not going to do that on today's video. I'm looking forward to do that eventually when I actually practice it myself. But in the meantime, those are really the three options that you're looking at. Because of that, we're using a regular standard corn tortilla. And if you actually read on the labels, if we learn how to read, you'll actually see, because it usually is genetically modified, some brands actually take the time to actually put it on there. And here we have on the back here, it says contain bioengineered food ingredients. In other words, this is probably a corn that was modified with that pest-resistant adaptation into it. So you have to be aware of that as you're trying to purchase or produce your own corn tortilla. So for the sake of our exercise, we're going to go ahead and use this tortilla here. It's already been cooked. And the thing about a tortilla, about a tostada, forgive me if I was saying tortilla for a while, a tostada is that they usually work better if you warm them a little bit. So if you put them in the oven, usually for about 5 minutes on 300, 400 degrees, and you don't want to cook them again, but just getting them warm, they're a lot easier to chew with, work with, and they just taste better. And that's something that we found. All right, so let's pretend I've taken the time to go ahead and warm these in the oven, but now we're going to build our tostada. Now we have our refried beans here. And with our refried beans, that's our superstar. That's our base. Oh, let me just go put it in here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is create our base with our refried beans. And that allows all the ingredients that we put on top of the tostada to literally stick to it. So we're going to take our tostada and we're going to layer our refried beans, in quotation marks, our refried beans on the top. Now, how much should you put on there? That is totally up to you, because you've already made, like I said, you've made a half a pound of the 1 pound of refried beans, of pinto beans. And once you refried them or blended them, you'll see how much you have to work with. We suggest you at least make a pound, especially if you're making it for your family, 4 or 5 people. You want to have enough all around your tostadas that everyone's going to eat. Now, this is our base. Now, what can you add on to this? Because, oh man, there's no meat. That's the cool thing. Because there's no meat, that leaves room for so many other types of vegetables. What we like to do is we also like to add rice to it. Now, you can add any kind of rice. Obviously, we suggest using a brown rice, and some people may prefer, a white rice. But if you're going to go the white rice route, yeah, say that fast one time. When you're going to go that route, look at a basmati or a jasmine rice. Has more of a floral smell, aromatic smell, and it tends to be tastes better. But if you're going to go for the taste and health route, absolutely, you want to push towards that brown rice. And what you can actually do, as we've shown you in ingredients in the past, and actually I'll go ahead and put the link for that recipe on this video as well. You can make your own Spanish rice using brown rice, and that's what we've done. And you wouldn't even know it, because with the brown rice, it doesn't look brown, but as you can see here, it's actually yellow. And all we did is we took that rice and we seasoned it with some garlic, Himalayan salt, and then turmeric. Now, it might be overkill to have the corn tortilla and the rice. If you're trying to watch that in your diet, you don't have to have the rice. We're just talking about building flavor from this point. So you do not have to have the rice. I repeat, you do not have to have the rice. But if you do, this is the route that you can go by adding some brown rice to that tostada. But let's go on, because if you're going that route or not, you've got to add this to your tostada, and that is something green. Because we're adding something green, we're going to use, for an example, spinach, whole leaf spinach, and romaine lettuce. When you're talking about lettuces, what's the most popular one in the grocery store? You're probably thinking about iceberg. The deal with iceberg is that it's not bad. I mean, iceberg is better than a Snickers bar, but it's not better than your other lettuces, because simply put, iceberg lettuce is basically water. And so you're not going to get all the nutritive value that you're going to get from a lettuce that is a little bit more full bodied, like a romaine lettuce or red lettuce or even other green lettuces, arugulas, things like that. So for our example, we're going to use romaine lettuce, leaf, and whole leaf spinach. Now the thing is, when you've got this, this is only 5.5 inches around, right? If you take this whole leaf and put it on there, that's not going to be very fun to eat. So what you want to keep in mind when you're making your tostadas with your greens is you want to cut them in ribbons. In other words, cut it as thin as possible. So I'm going to take my spinach, for example, and I'm going to cut it thinly. So a ribbon cut, you know how the whole leaf looks, right? But once you've cut it in a ribbon, it's very thin. And since it's thin, look at what happens. The texture of it now becomes almost like these shreds that you can put on the tostada. So when you put your toppings on there, they will hold, they will stay, and they won't crumble off or just roll off. So we're going to cut that in ribbons. So we've got some whole leaf spinach. Now we're going to ribbon up the romaine lettuce. Now here's how we're going to take our whole romaine leaf. We've cut off the base, which is totally edible, but usually that's where the dirt and stuff settles. So when you're cleaning them, what we like to do is we like to rinse down, right? Because all the dirt on that leaf is going to settle on the bottom, if there even is dirt, because there's so many layers to the lettuce head. So we're just going to cut off that bottom, cut off this rind, which again, totally edible, nothing bad with it, but it doesn't have a lot of flavor. And so now you've got the leaf here. So now we're going to take our leaf and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm going to lay this half over the other half, and I'm going to ribbon cut this too. Again, very thin strokes, so that now you've got nice thin lettuce. It's not big, it's not gangly. And now look at that. This is how our spinach looks. This is how the lettuce looks. So you've got these shreds of lettuce that now on our tostada, they're going to work really well. So here we are so far. We've got our tostada, we've got the refried beans, we got a little Spanish rice under there, and then we have the greens on top. Again, if you want to leave the rice out, it's totally fine. You don't need it because you've got the carb of the corn. So you don't have to double up if you don't want to. But if you are going for it, here it is. Now we're going to add on a few toppings on top of that. This is plant-based, right? So the thing about making plant-based fun, vegan good, is that you've got to find flavors that are more complex than just meat, right? So taking away the meat, we're going to build up our flavor profile with a little salt, a little savory, and a little lime, all right? A little bitter. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our taco sauce on here. Again, the order is not as important as the fact that you're putting it on there, because you're trying to diversify your flavors so that you don't have to have the meat, because you won't miss it. So now here we go. We've got our tortilla sauce, our taco sauce, and this is just your standard taco sauce. We actually have to do a video and show you how to make your own, and so we'll do that sometime in the future. So you've got the taco sauce on there, and now we're going to go the route of a substitute for your sour cream. And some of you may not use or eat sour cream, so you don't have to really worry about this part. But if you're a big sour cream fan, like say, for example, I know Tara was when we weren't vegan or plant-based. So what we've done is we simply substitute that. So you can substitute that by making your own, and we'll show you how to do that in another video. But what I've used for this one is basically a Hellmann's plant-based mayonnaise. I actually will throw the bottle up here. We don't get any promotion. We don't get any support from referencing this, but this is a version that's available in most supermarkets here in the States. And you can use this as a substitute for your sour cream in lieu of the standard, cow milk based sour creams. So I'm going to go ahead and take a dollop of the Hellmann's for our sour cream substitute. Okay. So now we've got our plant-based sour cream, we've got our taco sauce, and we've got these last two. A great salt addition that is not just salty, but you still get some vitamin mineral in there, is to use olives. And normally all the olives that are out there in the store, these particular ones, these are green olives with pimentos in them. You can use black olives. If you're worried about the salt content, when you cut them, just take them and rinse them out in a colander, get some of that salt water off. But you want a little bit of that salt flavor because it does add a bit to your dish. And so I've taken these pimento stuffed green olives, and I was going to show you how you can prep those, because again, this is only 5.5 inches big. So I'm going to scoot our lettuce over here. These are Spanish manzanilla olives, to be exact, but they're just the regular green ones. You want to take your olives, and when you're prepping the olives for the tostada, you want to just cut them kind of like you were cutting your lettuce. Just slices through the olives, so that again, if you don't want them to be in their bowl shape, because if they're still on there, they may roll all over the place. And again, you're not getting in trouble if you just leave them and throw them on there. But for trying to make it simpler to eat, this is the route that you want to go. So we've sliced up the olives, and that's another addition. And another one that you can go, if you're an onion fan, obviously, I don't have to tell you, you already know how to deal with your onions. This is great for onions, particularly red onions. Really good taste on the tostada. But we're going to leave the onions off because I'm the minority in our house. I'm the only onion guy. Everybody else, they like the onions, but they don't like them raw. And I'm actually trying to minimize my raw onion intake, because I've been learning some things about that, how actually raw onions can kind of aggravate your lymphatic system because of the gassiness of them. So I've been trying to, watch how many raw onions I use, but obviously I cook the onions, and I cooked that when I made the refried beans from the original pinto beans. And so they've been cooked, so the gas factor has been eliminated, but you still got that vitamin A and all that good stuff. That is in your onions. So I cooked them, but if you want to add your raw ones, you're free to do that. Last touch that we found to be really yummy when we're eating our, especially these kinds of meals, is the lime juice. Now, again, you already have the added bonus of throwing some vitamin C into a savory dish. When we think of vitamin C, normally we're thinking about eating with citrus fruits. So that's going to, lean more towards your breakfast meals or things like that. Maybe a dessert, but usually breakfast, right? This is a great way to get that vitamin C in to your dish. It's got good flavor, and it's not hard to do. Just take a lime, cut it in half, and make a fourth, again, by cutting it in that half, and just want to squeeze it on the tostada. Not a lot of juice in this one, but this is the final touch. Wow. Not too much juice in that one. I think I let that one get a little bit too old. But we've got the lime juice as that added salt touch. You don't have to add anything else to this at this point, because we've got our salty, you've got your bitter, you've got a little bit of sweet. And I guess I'll go ahead and show you another thing that we do too to add that sweet, because I realized you don't really have a sweet in here. One of the things we like to do is we add a little bit of a Catalina or a French dressing. Okay, and we just kind of do a drizzle of that if you like that sweet note on your dish like we do. If not, you can leave it out. Most people don't. And so that's why I didn't bother about including it. But if we eat it normally, we do put a little bit of that Catalina or French dressing as a tip for making it a little bit sweet. And here you have your tostada. You made your refried beans from scratch. You didn't get them out of a can. You didn't have to go to Taco Bell. You made them yourself. You got your tostada here, which is holding everything. And I'm going to hold this on the edge. Look how strong this thing is. Be careful before it breaks on me. But this is a great, fun dish. It's a good substitute if you're trying to, minimize your pizza because of all that wheat. Again, you can go this route and almost get the same effect, but it's nothing like pizza. That's why we took the time to show you how to make your own, right? But again, hopefully you can use this as an added dish to your diet, because one of the biggest frustrations that people have when they're trying to go plant-based is that they're like, what am I going to eat? What can I have? This is a route to go. It's easy to make. It's very affordable. And you'll have fun. It's good to do it together when you're with someone else too. So